Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection. Today what I want to do is take a look at German and Swiss watches in terms of certain dimensions. Some of these involve very complex things, others are more everyday kinds of things that either a watch collector or simply somebody going to buy a watch would be interested in. And so there are a couple criteria. First of all, it turns out that a lot of the German watches had Swiss movements. So these are German watches with German movements. The other part of it is that I wanted to use just watches, both from Swiss and German, that didn't have silicon. They didn't have silicon escapements. They didn't have silicon hairsprings. So it turns out that that's not as easy as I thought. More and more Swiss watches are starting to put in silicon, both as hairsprings and as escapements, but that's another story for another day. So let's take a look at these, and so let's get started. Okay, first of all, the day and date watch was sort of like, I looked at this in terms of almost a lifetime kind of office watch, but sort of a nice office watch, maybe an executive suite watch. And the two that I picked for on the German side was Lange und Sünde, the Odysseus. And this one is about as clear as you can get with a watch. You've got three hands, and then you have the day abbreviation at 9 o'clock, and then a nice big date over at 3 o'clock. Very clear watch. You're at work or something and take a look. It looks good and you can tell the time. Now, on the other hand, is the Rolex Day Date. Now, this is a famous watch. And the only thing about the Day Date that I really was a little, I don't know if the word would be put off, but would rather like to see more variation in is that it comes, I think, only in gold, of two types, and perhaps gold and platinum. I think this one is a white gold one. The Odysseus comes in the various versions of gold as well as stainless steel. So I think that's one advantage for the Odysseus, but the difference between the two watches is sort of more a style. The Rolex Day Date has the day of the week up at 12 o'clock, and then at 3 o'clock in the Cyclops window, you can see the date, and then it has Roman numerals. Both of them are clean, clear watches. I have no problem with either one of them, but this is the kind of choice that you can make on a watch like this. Now, ramping up a great deal, all right, the next thing I wanted to look at is that one of the I think probably the most effective constant force mechanism, as short of silicon and a quartz watch, is a Remintor. And a few years ago, some of us were talking to Stephen Forsay at the Watch Time show in New York. I asked him, I said, in one of his watches, I think, of Grubel and Forsay has a Remintor. I said, how come more watches don't have that? He said, because they're very hard to do. And so I took a look at a couple. Now, one of the very first Remintors in the modern day was by F.P. Journe, and it's called the F.P. Journe Chronomet Optimum. He has another one with both the Remintor plus a tourbillon, and a brand new one with a resonance, the double resonance plus the Remintor. So I've done some things with that. And essentially, what a Remintor is, it's a small wheel that in different intervals, it sort of rewinds and then back again. Okay. Why would it do that? Well, as a mainspring unwinds, the amount of pressure, the amount of force isn't quite as constant. As it becomes more unwound, it's a little slower, so forth. So what a Remintor does, it keeps winding it up And so as it unwinds, it keeps a constant force on it. That's the idea behind it for both of these. The other one is the Lang and Heinrich. Now, what they did, Marco Lang did when he made this watch, and what he called a caliber 5, he had what he referred to as a second remontoire, and this was an intermediate winding every second. And so when you look, and he had it somehow within the escapement. There's a little picture up there that shows there's sort of a part of it where he put the remontoire, which is different positioning than on the FP Journe. Both of these watches are very, very expensive, but both of them show that German Swiss have sort of the chops for just about the very best you can do in mechanical watchmaking. Now, this next two, by the way, too, I wanted to have a different Swiss watch, Swiss brand and German brand for every watches. So, I mean, usually with a chronograph, someone might say, well, you should have got, how come you didn't use a not a Remintor, but the El Primero or something like that. Well, I wanted to try something a little different. Okay, the Mont Blanc Nicholas Richersec, I'm sorry about the name on that, chronograph. This is a nice chronograph. It's caliber MB for Mont Blanc R200. It's a column wheel chronograph. It's possibly based on a double D, but I'm not, that didn't go into the investigation of it, but it's as a German watch too. It's a neat watch. It really is cool. I've seen some. I know some people who have them. They love them, and I think it's more affordable than a lot of the other ones you may be more familiar with, especially on the pre-owned market. Great buy. A lot of these are, with the exceptions of the Remintoirs and of course the Rolexes and Longa. They don't do too well. I mean, they do very well on the secondary market in terms of price, but not for the person buying one. Now, for the chronograph, one of the interesting things I found was that César-Lecoutre, there weren't very many. They had one in their master control chronograph calendar, and here they put together a triple calendar with a chronograph, and so you end up with a lot of stuff. But the design is done very well. The date 1 through 31 is done with a hand date down at 6 o'clock. They added a moon phase. There's sort of a lot of stuff going on here, but still, it's sort of a very cool watch. Price-wise, it's around 15, I think, about 15,000. But again, on the pre-owned market. Now they have another one by César-Lecoutre, forgot, Polaris, I think. But this one I thought was a very cool looking one. So here again, you have Swiss and German chronographs, and of course, like I said, somebody, how come you don't go with this one or that one? Because everybody does. Just to take a look at something a little different here. Okay, moving right along. Now, this is one where I found some very unusual stuff. Dive watch. Now, the dive watch, it might be, how come you didn't put a sub in, a Submariner, Rolex Submariner? Everybody knows about that. So, I'm going to try something different and look around. And boy, I tell you, I found a watch that I think is a really good buy. This is the Calibre de Cartier diver. Now, the Calibre de Cartier is this particular one. This Calibre 1904 MC was designed by Carol. I hate to mangle her name, but Carol Forestier Casapi. She was a designer. Now you might say, well, so what? Well, the so what is she was awarded the Watchmaker of the Year I think it was back in 2012 or 2011, something like that. And that is a big deal. I mean, people like Philippe Dufour, Jean-Marc Viderec. I mean, this is not an award lightly given. And so to have one of her designs, I think she's with Tag Heuer now, designing their own movements for them. But boy, this watch is really neat. Up in the upper left-hand corner up there, you can see some of the looms. It's got a tremendous loom. That little green 12 up there is what the loom looks like. Great diver, and for sort of like an all-around sports watch. You can get it wet, you can bang it around. It's got a unidirectional bezel on it. It's got the date window with 3 dates. I like that. I know some people say, "Oh, yeah, they don't like it," but I do. Okay, now the German watches with a German movement. One that I found that was recommended as a diver, I was very surprised at seeing, is this Nomos Glashütte Club Sport Neomatic. It's an automatic watch, 3 hertz. Love the 3 hertz. Here is a watch that doesn't look much like a diver at all, but it's set up for 1,000 feet. That's about 300 meters. That's pretty deep. That's really down there. And so, it was purported. I mean, it pushed out. This is one of their divers. On the back, they got a solid back, like all the Rolexes have their what do they call oyster backs on them, so they're super waterproof. So here are a couple. This is German, very different, and a Cartier that looks more like a typical diver, but it's a Cartier. It's a very different kind of diver with a very interesting movement in it. And also, too, the Nomos has got an in-house DUW 6101, 3 hertz that I like. Different kind of thing even to think of as a diver, but that's what it is. Now, the final ones are a pilot watch. And a pilot watch, I thought, a Flieger, German Flieger, that'll be easy. I can find a dozen of those. Well, I did, but they're all have Swiss movements. One watch company, a German watch company, what was it called? I forgot the name of it. They had their own movement, but it was stuffed with silicone. So I went to Glashütte Originals, and they have one. I should say they had one called the Senator Navigator. Now, a lot of these that I found, they don't make them anymore, but they're all over the secondary market and the used market. So, I mean, there's deals galore on a lot of these watches. And this is one of them. Same thing with the Cartier. The Cartier is, that one, I don't think they make anymore. It's a heck of a good buy, though. And I think this one is, too. Same thing with the Mont Blanc. I don't know if that particular model is made anymore, but man, they're all big, easy to find on eBay and Chrono24. Now, this one, I mean, I think there's basically 2 types of Fliegers. And this is, I think, type 2. They have 2 different kinds that are usually identified as Fliegers, mostly based on watches designed for the Luftwaffe during the Second World War. Anyway, they're pilot watches. And the other one is the Zenith Pilot Type 20 Extra Special. A lot of people have told me they hate the name. Okay, Extra Special. I don't know. It's sort of cool. Yeah. I think when one of my grandkids was 3 years old, he always liked to hear Extra Special. Okay. All right. So this is by Zenith, and it has one of my favorite movements in it that's unheralded by Zenith, and that's their Elite. This one's got an Elite 679. One of the problems with some of the newer Zeniths, they like to jack them up to 5 hertz. I don't like that. It does help with accuracy for a while. And but the Elite seems to be more of a really a traditional watch on that. So I like that a lot. Now, neither one of these, having been a pilot myself, I wouldn't get either one of these for a pilot watch, and the reason is that a pilot watch, what you really need is you need a second time zone. They have something that's called Zulu time, which is like pretty much the same as GMT time. But in Zulu time, when you have a flight plan and you're going somewhere, all of the times are in Zulu time. So you can fly anywhere in the world in Zulu time. If you got one of your movements or one of your hands set to Zulu time, then no matter where you are in the world, you know what time your clearance is for taking off and so forth. But neither one of these have it, and well, you didn't need it in World War II, I guess. And the ones with these giant crowns on it was back to the old open cockpit, and they had to wear gloves, and you needed a big crown so you could wind the thing. But there's sort of the style of pilot watch style. Well, listen, those are my comparisons between German and Swiss watches. There are all kinds of other ones I know I could have made. I did have my criteria, no silicone allowed. I know some people don't like that. Also, some of the best German watches, like Zen, for example, have pretty much Swiss movements in them, Solitas or ETAs or something like that. And those are very good movements in some respects, but like I said, I want to do this. Let's hear from you. I know you have an opinion, and you probably have some good ideas and ones I've never thought of. Someone says, I think it was Damasco, one of those that I like a lot, but they do have their own movement, but I think they have silicon. So anyway, this is an opportunity to subscribe if you'd like. And until next time, this is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Side, the art and science of watch collection.